Welcome to the KC Stars podcast, where we talk to people in the local Kansas City film community. And I have with me Gordon Lamb, filmmaker. And I was going to let you tell us a little bit about yourself, sir.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me. I am Gordon Lamb, local filmmaker. I also teach filmmaking at Olathe Northwest High School. Um, I've been filmmaking now, well, since I guess 2018. Seriously, I've been in corporate video for many, many years. That's pretty much me as far as filmmaking goes.
Well, tell us more than filmmaking. What led you here? I was telling someone I like talking to people. I like talking to anybody, but I like talking to people that are 40 or older because a lot of times they've led separate lives at different, this 5 year point in life, this 10-year point. Kind of lead us up to present in several minutes. Go ahead.
It's a weird journey. Yeah, you know, right out of high school, I joined the army. Well, I guess I joined the army before high school got out, technically, but I went straight into the army. So I spent a couple years in active duty, from like about 90 to 92. And when I got out, I went to JCCC and got my degree in graphic design. Then went into graphic design for maybe about, I don't know, like 6 months, maybe a year. I don't know. It's been so long because that was quite a while ago. Then I found myself, uh I kind of fell into video. Honestly, the place I was an art director at this printing company that was going out of business, and they let me go. And so one of our clients happened to do direct response commercials, and I just needed a job, and they asked me, "Oh, would you be interested in doing these things?" And I said, well, that sounds really cool. And so I jumped on that, and so that's really how I got my start in video, was back, and that was like early, like 2000, I think 99, 2000, and I got my start there. And keep in mind, I was still in the military because I was National Guard for a long time, and then I was there for about 4 years, and that was during 9/11, and 9/11 happened. I wound up going to Germany for a few more years, or I'm sorry, maybe for about like 8 months then, and then uh, came back and really kind of wanted to make a change. I was kind of tired of making the same commercial over and over and over again. And so I was looking for other things. And I wound up, after a couple other tries, I actually wound up at Olathe Northwest High School back in like 2004, teaching their film program there. And I did that for a few years, and which was great because for me that was like my really first, like, like, hey, maybe filmmaking is kind of a thing, or entertainment's a thing. Like, we can do these things. And I was, I knew just enough to, be maybe a couple steps ahead of the students. But it was a real good time to start learning stuff. Uh, because, that's the great thing about teaching, is you actually have to kind of learn how to do these things. And so I spent that time, you know, honing my craft there. And then in 2007, I wound up deploying to Afghanistan. And so I left the high school in 2007, and did a combat tour in Afghanistan, came back, and then I wound up just staying with the National Guard. At that point, I had almost 20 years in. And so I wound up ending like the last 5 years of my military career, working full time for the Guard in Topeka, doing, they found out I could do video production. So they said, hey, we got this program we want you to work on. And so I did video production for them, along with some graphic design stuff. I did some teaching as well. And then when I got out, that was probably around 2014, I freelanced for a year. And then I think in 2015, moved back to the Kansas City area, and um, went back into the civilian sector. At that point, I was out of the military, so I wound up working for, I think at that point it was Grantham University, for their marketing department, doing video for them. And then I wound up at Concord Career Colleges for a while. And I think it was at Concord about 2018 is where I had met Jessica Whitfield, maybe a year or two, maybe like 2016. I met her maybe like 2016. I was doing some stuff with photography, and we were trying to do some film stuff because I had access to equipment where I was working at, and so we were trying to do some film stuff. And I'd met Jessica then, and the photography thing kind of petered out. I mean, I still do photography. I really enjoy that. But I really wanted to get into filmmaking. I wasn't even aware there was like a filmmaking community locally, honestly. And I think in 2018, Jessica messaged me and said, "Hey, the IFCKC one night stand is coming up, and wonder if I'd be interested in doing it." And I'd always thought about like wanting to do like the 48 hour when it was still here, and it just never lined up with my schedule. Either I had you know drill weekend or something else going on, and so this was the first time that this came up, and I was free, so I was like, you know what, let's give it a shot. Let's do this. And that really was like my first film doing that. And we made this film called High Priestess Punch, and I think that year was a 25 hour film. So we made that film in a day, and we did relatively well with it, I guess. I mean, we came in second place. We shot, we took it to a couple other festivals, and then we did it again in 2019. And then we just kept making films. And I think in about 2021, I think we took a break for COVID. We decided that, hey, let's do a film for ourselves. And so Jessica and I got together and hashed out an idea for a film. We came up with the idea for Traffic Girl, and which was a kind of a sci-fi action thriller, I guess, short film. And so the plan was to make it in about, shoot it in about 4 days, and then it wound up actually taking us about a year to film just due to location issues.
Wow.
Yeah. And so we got it done, and we got that, and then we got into KC Film Fest with it. And prior to that, though, we had talked about this film. Jessica had told me this story, and it was really the incubator for the idea for Prepper, which was our latest film. And she told me this story about her, her personal story, and I was like, wow, that's crazy. We should make that into a film. And then it took us about 6 years, and I think we had to make some other films. We had to make some more connections and get to know some people, and kind of prove to people that, hey, we kind of know what we're doing. And so we wound up shooting Prepper, I think in 22, 23, 22, 23. I don't remember. It's been a minute. And then the post productions are the one that kind of took the longest on that one. But it took maybe about a year or two to get the post production on that. There was just a lot of things going on. I actually wound up back at the high school in 2023. Basically, my old job opened up, and I, at that point, I was like, I've got a lot more experience with filmmaking now, and there's an opportunity to go back and share that knowledge. And I think this would be really cool for me to do. I'd like to spend most of my day just talking to kids about filmmaking and doing that with them. And so I jumped on that opportunity, but that meant I was spending a lot more time making students films, or helping them make their films, and didn't have a lot of time for my stuff at that point. And so I but I did, find time. We got Prepper done finally, and got it out. And so that's kind of taken us to where we're at now. And so that's the long story.
That's a wonderful story. And I have to ask, so you went to school for filmmaking,
Nope.
correct? What did you go to school for?
I went to school for graphic design.
Graphic design. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you started making films. You got more experience in the Army. You taught it
Mhm.
for a while, then you got more experience. I mean, I would think you would be an outstanding film teacher just because you're not, I'm saying now, not in 2002.
Mhm. Yeah.
Because I mean, you're coming in with all this experience and knowledge and connections.
Mhm.
And I have to tell you, I don't know, maybe it's a Kansas thing, but schools that offer in high school Like there's a position for a teacher who teaches film class to offer. That's beautiful. I love it.
It's a rare thing, and I know that Blue Valley Caps has a film program, and I think between us and Blue Valley Caps, I and again, don't quote me on this, but as far as I've found, we are the only two in the area that actually teach film.
Let me write
And
that down just a second.
yeah,
But a fact check
yeah,
you. No, I'm just kidding.
yeah. I
Just
mean,
kidding.
again, don't quote
Just
me on
kidding.
it. I mean, if someone's going to jump up, it's like, hey, we teach it here. But as far as I know, we're the only two programs in the Kansas City area that teach film. And I, I had Olathe West opened up with a video position. Funny enough, it was a guy that I used to work with at Olathe Northwest back way back when. He moved up to a district position, but he was teaching video at Olathe West. I could have applied for that position, but I was like, yeah, that's not. I don't want to teach just general video. I don't want to do broadcast. That's not my thing. I actually worked for Channel 41 for 6 months, and I realized I don't like broadcast news. That's not the type of video I want to do. And
Sure.
there is a difference. And and then the position of Olathe Northwest came up, and I was like, that's the one I've been wanting. That's what I want to do. And it's I'm in my third year back, and it's been a great ride, especially like this third year, because I've had students now that I've had for 3 years, and those were students that were sophomores that are now seniors, and they're on board with the Mr. Lamb way of doing things, and so they really get it, and it's just been really fun to see these kids just make some really outstanding films.
Do you
Honestly,
teach any acting classes? Is that part of the program, or is it
it's
just the director, that kind of thing? Like what
yeah,
what is
it's
it?
all behind the scenes. I don't teach acting. Honestly, I've thought to myself, I need to take some acting classes just to because I would like to improve as a director, and that's the advice I've heard is like, hey, if you want to improve as a director, you should take some acting classes. I'm by far, I'm definitely not an actor myself, uh, but I leave it to the kid. Well, it's been a hodge. I get to, the great thing about having this experience and the contacts that I've made over the years is I get to bring that to the classroom.
Sure.
And so a lot of the people that I've worked with have come and helped me on those films. And so, I'll put an all call, hey, I got a student film, and I'll have a bunch of people, message. And so for me, like with the students, I'm like, look, if you're gonna cast an actor of a certain type, it needs to be the right age. We can't have a 16-year-old kid playing an FBI agent, and
Right.
that thing. And so
I've
uh,
seen some of those before. They're pretty sad.
yeah, it is they're interesting films. Uh, they and that's kind of what I get to do. I get to push the kids and say, look, I know what you guys are capable of, and I don't know if you know what you're capable of. And so, we're not going to do the normal high school level of film. We're shooting for something a little higher here, because I want people to really just, see these kids as films and go, those are high school students. That's incredible. And I think that, for them, I mean, I'm hoping that in a few years, we'll have someone that's, makes it big in the industry. So
And so you've had several people that have graduated who have been your students. Have they gone on to filmmaking as what they plan on
So
doing?
yeah, honestly, locally, and I can't claim him as one of my students. I can claim him that he was a student while I was teaching there, and we knew each other. But there's locally Chris Durr, who is probably a big local filmmaker. He went to Olathe Northwest, graduated from their program. I think he was there in 2008, so he was there a year after I left the school. But we were there at the same time. I've actually gotten a chance to work with him. I hired him a few years ago, back when I was working at Cleveland University doing their video production for their marketing department. Hired him to DP on some commercials that we were shooting. Super talented, and he's blown it up. He's got a film out there that I know he's made a short film. I think he's turning into a feature now. So yeah, and there's a few others that are definitely out there, in that industry right now. They're doing really excellent work.
Well, I think that's really cool, and I think there'll be more of those. And you're in the Kansas side of Kansas City. You grew up in the Kansas side, worked in the Kansas side. Have
Yeah,
you ever
I
been to Missouri? It's just over here, just a few miles.
I think I lived there briefly, just very
Oh,
briefly.
did you? You
Yeah,
got
I
out as soon
actually
as you could.
I actually moved to Overland Park because I graduated from Cheyenne Mission West. My the thing I always tell my students is like, hey, I missed going to school with Paul Rudd by like 1 year. He graduated a year before I left, and then after I left, Jason Sudeikis showed up about a year after I left. So
Wow.
I kind of bookend with them. But yeah, I moved to Overland Park, I think in 88. And so it was like my sophomore year in high school. So I moved from Omaha, Nebraska, was where I grew up, and then I moved here my sophomore year, and then I've been in Overland Park, since then. Obviously I've lived in a lot of different places in the city, but I'm in Overland Park now. So that just seems to me where home is at the moment. So
So is part of what you teach people and what you do yourself on your own films, do you do your own editing, sound, color? Like, do you do all of that?
yeah, so I started as an editor. That's where I got my start in video. When I actually started doing video, honestly, it was weird because the process back when I was doing the direct response commercials was I they hired me because I knew how to use Photoshop, and I would basically make like upper third, lower third graphics for these commercials, and then I would then at one point I started watching the editors, and this is back in like the infancy of nonlinear editing, and there was I was they were using a system that doesn't exist anymore, and that's how I got my start. And so I started as an editor, and so I've always wondered like what it's like to have someone else edit your work, and I've talked to some other filmmakers, and they're like other directors, and they're like, well, I edit my own work, and so I'm just like, okay, because that's just what I know. It's the part I know. So yeah, I do edit my own stuff. I do a lot of the motion graphics for it. Um, I don't claim to be a master at color. I That's one thing, especially with like more recent films. My director of photography that I've used, Wyatt Farrow, he's super talented. Usually I get everything put together real close to the end, and then I bring him in, and then we'll sit there and tag team, and he'll do color stuff, and then we'll tag team sound design together. One of these days I hope to grow up and actually have other people do that stuff for me, but for now I kind of hold on to it.
Do you ever do other people's editing?
I have actually. I did. um I worked with Joe Carey back in 2019. I've always been a fan of his work. I think the first year that I did the 10 hour, his team came in first place, and I was always like, wow, that's you know that's where I want to. And not that I always go into it saying, hey, we should make a film and not worry about where we place. Like, let's not worry about like winning the competition. Let's just worry about making a really good film. And he makes really good films. And so I was really interested in his process. And so he brought a film in 2019, and it was late. And so he couldn't, it didn't qualify in the 10 hour. You can't qualify for judge's choice. You can only get audience choice. I think he won audience choice that year. It was just this really smart film. It was hilarious. It was really well done. And I went and asked him. I said, "Hey, what happened?" He's like, "Oh, just editing. Like I didn't have a good editor that get it done fast enough." But I think he wound up editing it. And so I messaged him after that, and I said, "Hey, are you going to do the 48 hour this year?" And I think that was the last year they did the 48 hour in Kansas City. And he said, "I was thinking about it." I said, "If you do the 48 hour, I'll edit for you." And I did it so I could see what its process was. And it was, I mean, for me, it was a really good learning experience to see how he managed his team, and I learned a lot from it. And so that was one time I think I've actually promised to edit for him again on another film. So yeah, I definitely have worked on other people's stuff, but that's always hit or miss because there's been projects that I've edited where I've gotten the footage and I've gotten the script, and I'm like, what is this hot piece of
Mhm.
garbage you have me working on? And so I tend to be very careful about what I work on because I want it to be, I want my work to be, it's a reflection of me, and so I want to make sure that the projects I'm working on are good quality. And not to say that you can't make a bad film. I mean, everyone makes a bad film, But I was at that point. I was just like, the things you want me to do, I literally can't do it with what you've given me here. And
Hmm.
so it's you know that was that experience for me. It was yeah.
I'm going to shift gears here by showing you a picture,
Okay.
several
Um,
pictures actually. Tell me about this picture. What is this?
so Dream People, that is a film we did last year. And so one of my students, Asaya Montez, who graduated last year, she's a very talented filmmaker. And actually, the film that she worked on her junior year uh, actually won the Heartland Casey Film Fest award this last year. But she wanted to do the filmmaker face off. And so anyone who's familiar with the filmmaker face off, basically it's like a kind of a two-part competition where they have a writing part and they pick a few scripts and then they give those scripts to different filmmakers. And so you've got one script that has about 4 or 5 different versions. And there's like 3 different scripts that they picked that year. And this is the first last year was the first year that they did it. She really wanted to do it. Now the thing about what I taught or what I do teach, it's not just about the technical part. It's not just about like, hey, know how to work this camera. I also teach networking. And so she had met Wyatt, my DP, and he'd seen her work, and they talked, and she talked him into basically filming. he he agreed to film the film for my class, but then he wound up filming 2 more films. He filmed this one, and then we also did the 135 last year.
Wow.
Last year. So Dream People was a film that for the filmmaker face off, and yeah, I mean, I wound up editing. I guess this is another one that I didn't direct, that I did edit, and yeah, she knocked it out of the park. Really, we wound up winning the entire competition that year. I think we took home 7 awards for this one.
Wow.
Uh,
Yeah. And just
it,
just in case somebody doesn't know, like just to kind of re-explain, like the filmmaker face-off, there would be maybe 5 different directors got the same script, and we're
right.
doing it from a different perspective. And yours not only would have been the best in your category, this one also would have been the best overall. And I was there too. I was in one of them too, by the way. And I think there were 21 or 22, because one of them maybe didn't make the
Mhm.
cut. So 21 or
Yeah.
22 films, and this one was considered the best. Uh,
Yeah.
it was great, and Nicole Hall is just absolutely outstanding.
Yeah, yeah. When I saw the script, I immediately thought of Nicole. I had not worked with her. I'd seen her, and I was just like, "Hey, we need Nicole for this part." And so, uh, and luckily we got her. She agreed to do it, and she knocked it out of the park. She did an amazing job.
Yeah. What's this right here?
So honestly, this is during COVID. This is when I was working with Cleveland University, Kansas City, which is a local. They mainly teach chiropractic. They have a few other programs that they teach. I think they teach rad tech, and I actually just recently stopped working with them this last summer. They wanted to. I left to go back to the high school in 23, but I was still working there part time for a couple years, and they were gracious enough to keep me on part time for a couple of years, because teachers don't make that much money, surprisingly. Um,
Hmm.
which is why I spent the last 3 years back in school, and I managed to finish a bachelor's, and I'm about 2 semesters away from finishing my master's at this point, all in the vain
Great.
hopes that I can get paid more at the school district. Um, but so COVID happened 2020, and of course the whole world shuts down. The school doesn't shut down, but we vacate the building.
Hmm.
And to be honest, for me, it was the greatest time. Working from home, I love it. I've always been set up to work from home, so this was great for me. I would just go in and do the things I needed to do if I needed to film anything, and then I would come home and I would edit and do what I needed to do. But we wanted to basically the chiropractic clinic that's open to the public. had shut down and was getting ready to reopen. And so we did a series of interviews talking about the clinic reopening and how important it was that hey, we've had this time where we haven't had chiropractic, and these are the effects that we've had, and now it's opening back up, and how exciting that is. And so this was an interview I did, and again, we were trying to social distance, so I had the bright idea to, hey, let's try to do this outside. And I didn't think that 435 is right in front of the university. And so I managed to get clean audio, but that was a little bit of a challenge, having that, sitting a good distance away and trying to hear, questions and answers. But I always do, I like to do behind the scenes of stuff when I set up for that. So
So was she wearing a mic, or did you do a boom, or what did you do?
yeah, so I generally do a boom mic, and I think I see another photo in here where that's Dr. Petrick, and that's in Las Vegas. And funny enough, that one, I'm sure we're going to get to it, but that
Yeah.
one,
And people will only be able to
that
see this middle strip, except for you and
okay, so yeah,
I.
so I for a long time. I mean, I used lav mics for a while, and then that was when I was working, when I was doing stuff with the Guard. And when I was working for the National Guard, I got assigned to do a really like an hour so long video that honestly was just out of my scope at that time. I was like, this is beyond what I'm capable of doing here with what we have and the capabilities we have. And so we wound up hiring a company out of Washington D.C., which was really, it was great, because again, it was like I got an opportunity to spend a week in D.C. with this production company, working with them making this video. And one of the guys that was on the production crew, we would talk about stuff, and he would just tell me, he's like, going, oh yeah, usually when I do my interviews, I just set up a boom mic. And so from them I was like, oh okay. And that's always how I've that's always how I've done things. I always wind up on set with people who know way better than I do, who, professionals who, I'm just this kind of silly idiot that's failed upwards, and find myself in, oh, you're gonna produce these commercials because somehow video. And I'm like, oh okay. And I just know enough to hire people that are really talented and really smart about this stuff, and then I just sit back and I watch what they do. And that's how I've learned the craft that I'm at now. And so that was one of the techniques. He's just like, nah, I just usually stick a boom pole on a C stand with a grip arm, and that's how I get audio. And I've seen it all over the place since then. I mean, I've seen actual, like, when they've had celebrities come in, I'm like, oh yeah, they've got the boom pole set up, and that way people don't have to mess around with wires.
So funny.
So
I just interviewed Jesse Vandiver recently,
yeah.
and I, when they say get mic'd up, I never knew like if they were saying lav or lob or what they were
Mm-hmm.
saying, lavalier, lav.
Yeah.
And he was
Lavalier.
talking about that just captures voices of the people. If you
Mm-hmm.
want the whole room, use the boom kind of thing. So I'm thinking just like almost like I'm an expert now. Hey, she should be laved up because you don't want the external sounds of the
Yeah.
traffic. But I know
I
nothing.
mean,
But
the shotgun mics are pretty directional. I mean, we're getting into like really technical stuff right
that's good.
now,
That's good. That's good. I'm going to learn
but
from you.
yeah, shotgun mics are, they're super cardioid if we want to get really technical. So they're super cardioid mics, which are very directional. So as long as you're pointing that mic at the spot that it should be in, even with the traffic, you can get pretty clean audio.
Okay.
And what I'm seeing right there is the audio recorder on that is the old F6 H6. It's a Zoom. It might be the H6. I can never the F6 and the H6. I'm always kind of
Hey,
confused
I
on
know
which.
nothing. I just know
I
I just learned a tiny bit from Jesse. So
Yeah. So yeah, trust me, I barely. I'm like, yeah. But that audio was like, it worked out. Let's just put it that way.
that's good. And
Okay,
here you
so
are.
this is Jess and I, and so this was the IFC trailer and poster competition. And so I don't think we had either one. And Jess is like, I want to enter this, and I'm like, okay, well, we don't have either one. So and it's due really soon. So I had to really quickly, we had to get Cody. That's Cody Proctor there, and Jessica in that poster. And so we got them, in the studio. did the photo. I want to think, yeah, we did do this at the high school. I just set up a backdrop at the high school, and like I said, I do photography as well. And so, you know, um, we shot that there, and then I just comped it together in about a day, and we wound up winning the poster contest. I thought
Wow.
yeah, I thought the trailer was good, but it didn't win. Um,
You have so many skills, so many
I
skills.
I just really, there's a lot of things I want to do, and so I feel like I just really want to do all these different things, and I see these things, I'm like, oh, that looks cool, and so I want to try to learn how to do that, and so that's what I do is I go and I learn, okay, how do I do this? And photography has been a thing. I mean, that was part of my graphic design program was photography, and
Sure.
so I've done photography since then, and it's just served me really well to know how to have that extra skill. So okay, well,
And this is not from a movie role.
that is not from a movie role. That is me at my most fit. So
Thank you for
that
your
is,
service. Sincere
yeah,
thank you. You're
thank
going
you.
over there after 9/11. That's a big deal. Very dangerous, I'm sure.
Yeah, that was so yeah, Afghanistan. I've got a ton of footage from. I actually have like about a 20-minute documentary that's broken up in 5 parts. Back when I put it on YouTube, you could only put a video that was so long. And I think I've found actually the full length one on a hard drive recently, and I probably should just like stick it on another channel. But it's basically a 20-minute documentary. I took a camera with me that I think I actually dropped on that mountain behind you. We
Oh,
were
wow.
climbing it, and it just tumbled. It still worked afterwards, and that was back when I was shooting like mini DV tapes, if you can remember back to that one. This honestly, this is a picture of after my very last mission before I was getting ready to come home from Afghanistan. And we had spent, and what's funny about this one is, so my MOS in the Army, I was a 19 Delta Cavalry Scout, and this mission right here was the one and only time I ever got to actually do my actual MOS in combat, for real. And it was like, it took me 18 years to get there. To just like, yes, okay, I trained for this whole thing, and now I actually did it, and then I went home.
That's
And
awesome.
so it was kind of a very cathartic event. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Well,
that's
thank you for
that's after
doing that.
24 hours of staying up all night and just overwatching and listening to the Taliban on the radio
Wow.
talk about what they were going to do.
All right. Now this is going to be a thin strip, so I'm trying to move it's a little
Yeah.
sideways to get you in the picture. What is this?
So this was our very first year. So this would have been 24. Uh so the 23-24 school year. So this is my first year back with the high school. And so I had been involved with the high school as an advisory board member. It was a really weird story. Like in 2015, I was just perusing the ONW website, and I saw that one of my students, former students, was teaching in the e-communications academy, e-communication academy. They shoot me if they heard me say e-communications. Uh, so I just on a whim, and I was just down the street working at Grantham, and so I just popped my head in, and that was back in 2015. I popped my head in to see if it was true, and sure enough, there's my student, and she's teaching there, and it was kind of cool. And then of course they asked me, said, "Hey, would you mind being on our advisory board?" And which was funny because I mean, a lot of the members that were on the advisory board were people that I had brought on back when I was the first time.
Wow.
And so I was like, absolutely, I would love to be on the advisory board. And so I found out that they had the students were working on making like feature length films in the entertainment uh, uh, class. And so the second year they did it, a new teacher had taken over, and I reached out to her, and I was like, hey, I would really love to help you in any way possible to do this. I'd like to work with the students on this. And so the first year, like as it was their second year doing feature films, I worked with the students. I was on both sets for the two films they did, and you know, and then they did a screening, and they would do screenings at Prayer Fire, out there in South Overland Park.
Yeah.
And so so I would come in as a guest speaker, and I did that for probably about 8 years. And then
Wow.
and again, so that's kind of how I knew that that job was opening up, because I was friends with the teacher, and so she'd mentioned something about it to me, and then she announced it on Facebook that she was leaving, and so I immediately messaged her and was like, going, "Hey, I kind of think I want to take your job," and she was like, we had a conversation, and she's like, "I think that this would be a really good fit," and so she had a lot to do with getting me back into the high school. So
Awesome.
I moved the screening from Prayer Fire to the Glenwood Arts, just because it's a really cool location, and cost effective wise, it's actually um, it's a really good place to do screenings. And I had already done a screening at that point there, and so this was our culminating event. We'd done 8 short films that first year. I
Wow.
changed it, and that was fun because I changed it from feature length films. I said, we're not going to do 2 feature length films. We're going to do 8 short films. I had a lot of revolt and dissent, and but they for the most part quickly figured out, like, okay, this is the same amount of work, and if not more so. And so so it was a fun first year, to see what the students came up with. So yeah,
Very
so this is
cool.
this is our group picture.
So are you still doing the 8 feature lengths instead of the
I've
two
I've
feature?
had to change it. Yeah, so we did 8 short length, or 8 short films the first year. The second year, the goal was to do 8. We actually wound up with 9, and but 2 of the films the students were supposed to do didn't happen. Luckily, and she's in this picture. Asaya, the girl who did Dream People, she's in here. She was a junior in this one. She wound up doing 3 films that year, so she made up for the 2 that we lost, basically, and so we just screened
Wow.
those films. Uh, so we did get 9 films last year. This year we're doing things a lot different. I went from 2 classes down to 1 class, and so I'm doing 2 short films that are about the 10-15 minute length, and we are doing, throughout this school year, we're doing um 4 1-minute film challenges. We're doing 4 10-hour film challenges. And we've
Mhm.
already done we and I've broken the class up into 3. So every time we do that, I get 3 new films. And so it's going to wind up being about the same amount. It's just that we're spending, they're getting to do films sooner, and getting to complete them. And so we did our first 1-minute challenge in August, and then we had a 10-hour at the beginning of September. The first one, that was a lot of fun for them. I think they had a really good time doing that. This week they're doing their second 1-minute challenge. We've got another 1-minute challenge coming up in October, and then on October 25th we have our second 10-hour film challenge.
Wow.
And we're still looking for actors. So if there's any actors out there that want to come help us out, let me know.
Very cool. And what is this picture?
So this is that's Dr. John Petrick, and he is a Cleveland graduate, alum based out of Las Vegas. And so we went to Las Vegas in 2020 and to go do interviews. So a lot of what I did at Cleveland was I would do what they call insight interviews, and the goal was to really get kind of the story about the chiropractor. That's more than just like, hey, Cleveland's a great place, and here's all about chiropractic. I was really kind of like, tell me about you, as a person. We know you're a chiropractor, but let's do that. And so it was basically, I would come in, I would do an interview, and then we'd put it together, and put the stories out. And so we flew to Vegas. I got to check a bunch of equipment. That was a lot of fun, carrying a bunch of lithium batteries in my carry on, trying to figure out how that was going to work. But so this was one of our inside interviews that we did. And honestly, this is the last time I was ever on a plane since COVID. So because
Wow.
we literally came back from this, and then it was like shortly after this, we shut the school down. So
Yeah, absolutely. It was a tough time. By the way, I think I went to audition at that school or send in a resume to the school that you work at now, even though I can't remember what it is. It's Olathe or Blue Valley. I don't remember
yeah,
which.
no,
You,
Olathe
you work at
Northwest is where
Olathe,
I'm
right?
at.
Olathe Northwest.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, I went in there, I believe, in 2020, like in January or February, and talked to them. They were going to do something. They put it out, and
hmm
then the world shut down, and so
Yeah.
I never heard anything else. Nobody did. I think it just kind of
Yeah.
the schools were all closing, and
I think they had ideas for a film because they literally went to a virtual classroom at that point, and a lot of the teachers that were there at that time are still there, and they're like it was a very interesting time to have to try and teach that way.
Yeah, I'm going to
I
use
can't.
your time. I'm going to use your time to tell a story because I've never told this story. I
Yeah.
was in Columbus, Ohio,
Hmm.
the whenever my company in mid-March or maybe March 8th or 10th, whenever all this stuff happened, and that is where the Arnold bodybuilding competition is. I stayed across the street from it. I was at the convention center and I was going to go over there that night. And that night is when they started canceling events and saying
Hmm.
no one could come in. It's the largest supplement and bodybuilding equipment. Um, I can't think of the word for it. I want to say seminar, but convention with all the stuff
Hmm.
there. All these people had traveled from Russia, from South America, I mean, from Europe, from all over the world, had all, I guess Russia's in Europe, but all over the world to be
Hmm.
there. And um, that night, they said they're not going to do the arm wrestling competition, the bodybuilding competition. You can have one coach, all this, and all these people were there and they were all sad at the hotel. I took pictures of people for them, like before they
Hmm.
went into the competitions and stuff. And I was going to go in because I was staying right there. I was going to get to go in and watch it.
Yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
well, my life was
Yeah.
ruined. That's my sad story.
Yeah. No, it's funny. It's funny because Arnold Schwarzenegger, one of his workout, or one of the guys that he worked out with, I think it was Franco Colombo.
Yeah.
He actually graduated from Cleveland University, California. He was a
Oh,
chiropractor,
yeah. I
you
knew
know,
he was a
and
chiropractor, Franco Colombo.
yeah, yeah. And so
Um,
there's ties to Arnold Schwarzenegger because there's actually, if you go into the university, there's a picture of Dr. Cleveland and Arnold Schwarzenegger standing there together. So
Very cool. Where can we see your movies that you've done? Where can we see those?
a lot of our shorter films are, well, I guess they're all short films, but I guess a lot of our 10-hour competition films are on YouTube. We've got a YouTube channel. Just look up Not Second Productions. That's NOT and then 2ND Productions. A lot of our stuff's there. There's only two films that I've not put on there because I have not put on Attack of the Nithra from the 135, which is a fun film. I like it. I just, we did the 135, and then I haven't done anything with it since then. I try to think if I entered it in anything else. I might have. I don't remember honestly. When you start to get like, hey, you've got like 16 or 20 student films that you're trying to
Yeah.
plug into film festivals. I start to lose track of what all I've done and where.
Well,
Uh,
this YouTube is
Prepper,
not for the weak. When you put stuff on YouTube that's like this video will be an hour long, it will take 3 or 4 hours to go on because every time my computer stops, it stops loading.
right.
This is going to be a long, I mean, and I can picture doing that over and over with films.
Yeah.
That would be hours and hours.
Yeah. Well, it's always the IMDb ones too, because I try to put them on. I've got a bunch of them on IMDb, and if anyone's ever done the IMDb process of just getting a film on there, oh my gosh, they do not make it easy. I'll
Yeah.
tell you,
Yeah.
it's not intuitive. I'll spend 20 minutes just trying to like navigate my way to the portal that gets me to be able to put the film in every time.
I can actually help.
But
I actually have done a lot of IMDb. I'm putting this on
yeah,
IMDb. So
oh, right on.
I do it a lot. I put people's movies on before. I put in an entire series, which took me hours of
Yeah,
volunteer time just because I like the people.
yeah.
So I help you
It's
if you need help with it. Unless you like,
it's
some people like to fumble through it and it's okay.
it's it once I get it going, I've done it enough times at this point to where
Yeah.
I know what I need to put in to get it to work. It's just that it's a lengthy process, and I don't
Yeah.
think people who've never done it don't understand it. Like, that's a little tricky to get things on
Yeah.
IMDb.
Submit
Uh,
anyway. Warning
yeah,
understood. Go ahead. Yeah. One
yeah,
of these
yeah,
people like, okay, I've already said what
right,
person it is.
right,
Yeah.
yeah,
It is, a lot of people when they try to do it are like, I can't do any of this. Like
hmm,
this is really hard. So I get it
yeah, yeah,
because it is a pain. But you're an
right,
editor, so you're used to those little frustrating projects
yes.
and
Just
fighting things. So you should
those
be
little
good at it.
details you got to put in there. Yeah, I mean, it's like anything. It starts to become muscle memory. Once you do it enough times, you're like, okay, yeah, I know what I got to do here. But so that's our YouTube channel. Attack of the Nithra is not on there, and Prepper is not on there. We're still uh looking at other festivals to put prepper in, and so we're kind of keeping that one pretty close to the chest um, for now. So that'll pop up on, I usually announce like, hey, it's going to be playing at this festival or that festival. We had a screen, excuse me, we had a screening event over the summer that we showed it at. We actually just showed all of our stuff. That was one where I was like, usually I'll do a screening event in the summer where I'll have, whatever film we did, and then I'll have some other filmmakers come out and do it. But I talked to Jessica and I was like, what if we just did our films? And she's like, be kind of cool. And I did throw, Dream People Attack of the Ninth, which technically I co-directed Attack of the Nitro with Asaya Montez, but she did Dream People, and so we had I guess her and I were the two directors for that one. But
Hey, if filmmaker was out of your vocabulary,
mhm.
what would you consider yourself? A director, a producer, an editor?
Yeah, all that.
Which one?
I mean,
What's
I've,
your
I've
strength? What's your strength? If you had one to do, what would it be?
if I'd one to do, I dream of like directing, and not having to worry about the rest of it. I would love to just come in, do this stuff for pre-production, plan it, have all these other people. I've been on enough sets where I've had uh professionals who really know what they're doing do their job so that I can do my job as a director. And the first time that I had to experience that, it was a commercial set. We were here in Kansas City. I was working with uh Pat Monroe, who passed a couple years ago. And I'm sure there's a lot of people in Kansas City who worked with him, and he was an amazing guy. And uh, he was my first AC on set. And again, I'm kind of a tech nerd. I built that production, the production end of that for Concord Career Colleges. So I did all the purchasing for the equipment and all that. And then because I purchased it, I'm like, well, let me figure out how to put this together. Let me figure out how this camera goes together, how this jib arm goes together. And so I knew my equipment, and I was like, here's all the equipment. And I start building stuff. And then Pat's just like, hey man, I got this. I know how to go do director stuff. And it was the first time someone was like going, and it was the first time I had to learn, like, okay, this isn't my job. My job is not to build the camera. My job is to do director stuff. I should go figure out what director stuff actually means. And so I had to go do that. I go figure out what a director actually did. And so yeah, if I had a dream, it would just to be solely a director where I had people that I could trust to do their job, and I could just come in and because when you have that, and you have a good plan, everything goes really smooth. So I would love to see me as just solely a director if I had my way.
Excellent answer. Whenever you're casting, do
Mm-hmm.
you see the auditions? What are you looking for?
Uh, you know, it's interesting because I think I've gotten to know enough of the local actors that a lot of times when I have a character, I already have somebody in mind. I know I know what people's ranges, and so I'm like, okay, I think this person would be really good for that job or for that role. And I might open it up to auditions because there are people out there that I don't know. But I want to see someone that you know yeah, and I guess the trick is writing, because I've written to, I've done that to where I want to see someone that embodies the character, someone that I feel like has the qualities of the character that I'm trying to direct. And then of course, um, trying to direct actors, that's the challenge, is trying to get a performance in. And so I definitely want to look for someone that I know that I can get a performance out of. That's probably the biggest thing I look for, and
So,
and so that's
how would you call your directing style? Like when you're saying directing actors, what are you meaning?
I my biggest thing is that and there's a lot of directing, a lot of different directors out there that have a lot of different methods. I like to be very laid back, And again, I'm still developing my skills as a director, and I'm still trying to navigate that because again, I have no formal training in it. Uh, Everything I've learned from other people or from watching you know YouTube videos or whatever. But I want everybody on set to have fun, but I want everyone to be able to shift gears and do their job. And but when I come at directing, I think to me is being able to convey what the motivation is of that character and to really get your actors to understand where their headspace needs to be. uh to me it's not about just reading lines. I mean, it's about the subtext, it's about what's not being said, and I want to pull that performance out of them. And so trying to connect with them on an emotional level that gets them to understand this is where I'm at. And that's where I like to be as a director. I'm not there to make anyone's life difficult, but at the same time it's like I want a performance. And so I like to try to convey that in a way that hey, I understand where I need to be. And so that's the challenge, because I like to have fun on set. And so but if you're trying to do something serious, you've got to be able to shift gears and be like, hey, this isn't fun time right now. We need to make sure that our actors can be in that headspace.
When you
And then having
say,
really good actors that know how to do that is
yeah, I mean, like,
very
I
important.
guess because like, I've had like 40 directors, probably, like, honestly, like that many, just because I seem to work with people one time, five times, not
Mhm.
50 times. And a lot of the directors just, you do your part and they don't really give you any feedback.
Right.
I've had a few that have said, okay, and they set up the scene. Even though I already know the scene, I love it.
Hmm.
I love it if somebody sets up, tell me something I already
Hmm.
know, so I know we're on the same page.
Yeah.
Um, I can't think of a great example now, but you say, okay, remember your wife just died
Hmm.
and whatever, and they're kind of going through stuff that I already know, but it's like I like it when they do that. Is
Yeah.
that the kind of stuff you do whenever you're a director, or what do you do?
Yeah. I'll definitely sit down with the actors and try to say, hey, what's your motivation here? Like, what are we doing? A lot of times, I'll just sit down with them real quick and say, okay, this scene, this is what you're feeling. This is where this is what's happening. You're really upset because this is the situation. And pull from that. Um, you know, again, the little bit that I know about acting, it's like you've got to pull from something somewhere inside to get that emotion. Uh, and so trying to try to understand where they're coming from and to make that connection with them to say, all right, here's where you're at emotionally. This is what the subtext of the scene is. This is what's going on in your head. Because that's the time for it, right? It may not be on the script, but the time for like, here's what your inner thoughts are. That's what I'm trying to get at, and try to put them in a space, because they're going to have to draw on something to pull that emotion out, whatever that is. So if it's an emotional scene, it's like you've got to go and think about what's something that's happened in your life that's going to get that emotion to come out.
Yeah.
Which is not an easy. It's not an easy thing to do.
Yeah, I like it. Yeah, and and I'm not an expert on it, but a lot of times they talk about internal and external,
Mm-hmm.
where you almost like put yourself in the person's shoes and then respond the way that person, you become that person, or others, they draw on past experiences and then think about those as they're talking, so everybody does it a little different. But I think it's nice the way you're doing it just sounds wonderful. Um, what are you most proud of that you've done in this?
Ooh, Prepper was it took us so long to get that produced and made and finished and out there. That's one thing that I'm really proud of. But you know, getting back to teaching, which was something I'd always I, I don't I didn't feel like that when I left, and again I left for deployment. I wound up leaving in the middle of the school year. I was
Mm.
like, I knew that spring break was coming up and then my orders were starting, and I had to tell the school, I'm like, hey, I'm not coming back after spring break. And they had to quick and find a sub to replace me. I didn't get to leave on my terms.
Yeah.
And And that was a 16-year break, and I had gained all this knowledge, information, and then was going back to the high school. It was always kind of in the back of my head of like, hey, what if I wound up back here? Like, I don't even know if it's possible. I didn't even have a degree at that time. I didn't have a degree the first time, so I was like, I don't know if they do it again, because I always thought, I'm like, oh, they'll never hire me back. And so to get the opportunity to come back and share that knowledge with the kids, and see what these kids are capable of, because again, what we were doing 20 years ago is very different to what we're doing now, and what these kids have available to them now, technology wise. And to me, that's probably one of the things I'm really proud about when I see these kids. um you know and a lot of that, what's crazy is a lot of that teaching is kind of one-on-one. I mean, I'll have a class and I could teach a lesson, but a lot of the learning is more one-on-one, where they're coming to me and saying, well, how do I do this thing? And you can see them making those connections, and then to come to that end of year event, to where we have that screening and seeing these kids, because I try to do it in a very film festival way, where they get to sit down and talk about their films. That's to me like something I'm very proud of, is to be able to pass that information and to the next generation of filmmakers.
That actually sounds wonderful. Now I wish I went to Olathe Northwest High School.
I wish it had been around when I was then. I might have switched. I mean, to have a program like that, honestly, is it's I I hope it's around for a long time. Honestly, it may or may not be me teaching it, but I mean, to me, for these kids, it's such a great opportunity for the ones that really want to do it. Uh, because they're capable of doing really really good work. I mean, like I said, I've seen some really good films come out of this program, and so that's one of those things that you're always like, okay, that's really cool. Now I always tell them, I'm like, you put me down as the executive producer on there, because my name's going on this film somewhere. But
Good,
um,
good. Hey,
you know,
I'm gonna
yeah,
ask you a question, but then I'm gonna
mhm,
ask you a different question because I want you to think on this one for a
okay,
moment. It's gonna be the hardest question I ask you. Here's all the buildup. What's the best advice you've ever gotten, or the best advice you've ever given, or you can answer both. All right. I want you to mull that over while I ask you my
okay,
real question. What is the best barbecue in Kansas City? You can only give one place, though you can give more than one if you want. But
yeah,
but one place, like if someone said I can only go one place,
yeah.
where is it? Where are you going to recommend and why?
Uh, God, it's crazy, because I wish Casey Masterpiece was still a thing. Because I love Casey Masterpiece when it was here back in the day, but sadly I can only get the barbecue sauce at the grocery store. They had really great ribs. Honestly, I would say Q39. I mean, Q39 honestly is probably one of the best barbecues that I've had since I've been here. I've had it all. I've had Arthur Bryant's. I've had Gates. Had Gates yell at me. Um, I've
Gates yell at you. You mean like the "May I help you,
Hi,
please"?
may I help you?
Yeah.
Hi, may I
Okay.
help you? I was like, oh,
Some people love that and some
right,
people hate it. But
yeah,
just so people know if they're watching that from Kansas City, I mean, it says, "May I help you, please?" on the menu. It says it
yeah.
on the top, and they
Be
yell.
ready.
They yell it when you walk in. And
Be
some
ready.
people, I went with coworkers to Gates, and they loved
Mhm.
it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And we just had Rosedale the other day. Like this last weekend, we went to Rosedale. My girlfriend really likes Rosedale barbecue. It's okay. It's not bad. It's not Q39.
I went to Rosedale and I had burn ends, and I thought, why does everybody keep talking about how great this place is?
Hmm.
And then I went back a couple weeks ago with Dan Fecht,
Hmm.
and he got ribs, and he was nice enough to let me try one, and
Hmm.
I got pulled pork or something, but the ribs
Yeah.
were, I thought the ribs were wonderful.
I will say that I had, because I got their chicken, and the chicken wasn't great.
Their
But
pulled chicken?
no, it was just on
Okay.
bone, like a half a chicken. But everyone else got like these combo sandwiches, and I ate half of my girlfriend's, and they were really good.
That's
I
good.
have to say
Okay.
that. So
So
I don't want I don't
we,
want I don't want to completely,
yeah.
bash on Rosedale. They had some really good combo sandwiches. It was like beef and ham. It was really good.
Yeah, I
So
think at some places it's what you order.
yeah.
I went to BB's one time
Hmm.
and their meat is fantastic. I like their sauce, but their beans tasted like they were half sugar and half
Yeah.
bean. Like so, but it's like I loved the meat and the sauce.
Yeah.
Just some places you just got to know what to order.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. So yeah, for
All
me,
right.
Q39 is the top.
All right. Q39. Another vote for Q39. All right. By the way, Jack Stack in my informal poll is
That's a
winning.
good second. That's a
So
good
yeah, that's
second.
winning. Um,
Yes.
Q39's been brought up two other times though, I believe, but I might be lying. I'm not sure. So, all right. What is the best advice that you've been given or that you have given to someone else?
So, and I've already brought it up. The best advice I've given, which was go do director stuff, and it really was. It was the okay. I need to stay in my lane. I need to do my job, which is probably the best advice that I give my students. I mean, there's a bunch of things I could say because, with filmmaking, and if you are like a person who's like, I really want to make a film, I just don't know how to get started, or I think what a lot of people do is they say, I want to make a film, but I need to do this, I need to do that, I don't have this, I don't have that. There's nothing stopping anyone from making a film. If you've got a cell phone, you got a great camera, make a film, go make a film, right? There's nothing stopping you. Take out all those roadblocks and go do that thing you want to do. Uh, However, I will say be don't be afraid to be critical of your work, right? Every step along the way, I'm always looking at what can I do to improve? How can I get better the next time I do this? And that's not only just for me personally, it's for what things can I improve for my crew. Now, of course, that helps when you're spending someone else's money.
Sure,
Because if it's
sure.
like, yeah, it's like, if you've got that budget, and it's like, hey, someone's like, it'd be great if we had a better slider. And then the next time I show up with a Dana Dolly, or hey, we used to have wheels on everything. We could just wheel everything around. Well, guess what? Next time I showed up on set, we had wheels on everything. And so it was all the little things, or oh, you know what, we better food, better this, better that. And again, those are those little things that I learned along the way to say, like, here's how I can make my crew happy, which is the biggest thing you can do, is to make sure your crew is happy. Now that's if you've got someone else's money, or you got a budget that you're working with, that's really easy to do. Um, if you're on, which all of my films have been low, no budget films. But I've worked really hard to make them not try to make them not look like that. And so, you know, you know, the trick with that is getting people who are passionate about your project as you are. But you still have to make sure that everyone is well taken care of on set. And because that's how you're going to get the best performance out of everybody. So, my biggest advice is don't let anything stop you. Make your film. uh Respect your crew, because they're the ones helping you out. It is a collaborative project, right? You have to rely on other people to do it. You can't do everything yourself. So trust the people that you're working with, to do their job. And then treat them with respect, honestly, like take care of them. That'd be my biggest advice.
That's awesome. Awesome. Any other, yeah, those are great words of wisdom. Any other words of wisdom before we wrap this up?
Wow. You know, words of wisdom. I spend most of my day trying to give words of wisdom. You know, like I said, I feel like I can stand on that. Like if this is something you want to do, and I guess there's a lot of filmmakers out there that kind of do their thing, and they kind of stay at this level. And if that's what you want to do, that's cool. I mean, I have no problem with that. um I'm just the type of guy that I have a goal in mind. Like I want to get somewhere with my filmmaking. I want my movie to look like that's a movie. That's a movie that I would see in any theater around the country. And so to me, it's like I have to spend my time um trying to, what do I need to do to get better? How do I need to improve? What's the next step? What's the next thing I need to do? And if you're serious about filmmaking, I think that's the attitude that you need to have is to continually look at how you can improve and how you can get better as a filmmaker. And that's a process that probably never ends. Even if you do get to that point where you make that movie, it's then like, okay, what's the next thing? So it's having that um, you know, you're constantly learning and you're constantly improving. And so come at it with that attitude.
That's awesome. And that would be such a logical place to end. But I have one more question. I
Okay.
can't help myself. Um, uh, you don't write a lot, or do you write? Like, how do you get your scripts?
Yeah. So I I don't I don't write a lot. I have written. I do write. Right now I'm in the process of like I've been in this, like I said, going back to the school was kind of a time of like, okay, you need to put some things on pause, because you know you're going to school, you're teaching school because I had to go back to school.
Sure.
I'm also teaching school. I'm also working a part-time job, and I had a lot of other things going on. So there's a lot of things I had to put on pause. But a lot of my scripts, before that, again, we're doing the competitions. I did a lot of those with Jessica Whitfield, and she's been my main writer for a long time. We would just sit down, we would collaborate, we would go over what's the idea. She would bang out a script. I would look at it and say, change this, change this, change this. This needs more subtext. This is on the nose. Blah 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 blah. She would make the changes, and then we would go film. Prepper and Traffic Girl. Traffic Girl, like I said, the script on that one happened really fast. That's one film that I would love to go back and redo. Just because when I watch it now, I'm like going, okay, we could have done a lot better on that. Again, it's that constant improvement. I'm glad at what we did. It's like, hey, it got into KC Film Fest, so it couldn't have been terrible, but I definitely look at it and say there's a lot of areas that could be better. Um, Prepper went through so many revisions, and to the point where we had a script, and then I was like, this isn't working at all. We need to start over. And we just sat down and I lined out, I said, these are the events, these are the things that need to happen. Here's the main points. This is where it needs to go. And then Jessica banged out the script, and then we refined it from there. And that's what you see on the screen now.
So
Uh
more of a
and
collaborative effort
yeah,
with
absolutely.
Jessica Whitfield as the star and you as the assistant. I mean, I'm just saying it, but
Yeah,
is it kind
yeah.
of like she's doing the bulk of the work, or are you doing
I
50
mean,
50?
Prepper's her story. I
Okay,
mean, it really is her story. I mean, it was based off of what she went through, and and again, it's inspired. Obviously, it's not a we're not reenacting real events. It's inspired by her
sure.
story, that we've taken a lot of liberties with, and so that one, we kind of just took the inspiration from it and brought it into what it was. But a lot of the stuff I write is collaborative. I mean, I always feel like you need to have other people get eyes on your stuff. I actually have like a full length feature script that I wrote several years ago that I collaborated with someone else, to get it done. And um, I'm re-looking at it now, like debating if I want to rewrite it because it definitely needs to be rewritten. And I'm trying to get better at writing things, at least a first draft by myself, and trying to get faster as a writer. Because like I think the advice I got recently was that you know writer's block isn't a thing. It's That's you trying to write something perfect the first time. And what good writers do is they just throw it out. They get it out as fast as they can, and it's sloppy and it's bad, and then they spend time just massaging it and refining it and revising it into something good. And that's what good writers do, and that's a skill that I'm trying to develop right now. And so I've got a first draft script that I wrote. It's about 20 some pages that I would really love to produce it. I've even got one of the locations secured. I'm just kind of like stalled at like, okay, how do I, because now I'm like, okay, this probably needs to be a feature. And so I'm now like, do I write another feature? Which I want to do, but then I'm like, okay, well, I want to shoot something shorter this summer. I need a smaller script. And so I'm trying to come up with things. But again, I've got a lot of irons in the fire right now. So it's a skill that I'm trying to get better at.
Yeah, no, that's fascinating. I'm always impressed with writers, and it sounds like you are a writer, and you assist with things, you write things yourself,
Mhm.
and I look forward to seeing more. So I
Cool.
appreciate you meeting with me. I've actually truly enjoyed talking to you, and I've learned a lot about you. It's been interesting. Um, any final words?
I think we've covered it, haven't we?
All right. Okay. Well, I'm going to think of one more question, but we better get
Yeah,
out
I
of
think
here.
of another question. Yeah, no,
All right.
yeah.
See you later. Thank you, sir. I appreciate you.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks.